a
just
small
recorded.
intro again. So just starting off with the small intro again, because I stopped, I forgot to press recording. This is Dr. Ben, who's our special guest on the Natural Detox Inner Circle membership today. And we are very excited to have him. He is the author of Create Health and Reverse Autoimmune Diseases Without Drugs or Their Side Effects. And I have known him for about a year or 2 years and have been extremely inspired by his work. So the first question is, if you could tell us a little bit about your story of finding your path to health, Dr. Ben.
Sure. So my journey began about 12 years ago. I guess that was 2010. And I started having health issues in my late 20s. And I came down with really bad eczema on my hands. I had really bad digestive issues, and I also had chronic pain throughout my body. It wasn't super severe, but body felt like it was always sore, and really bad chronic fatigue where I had no energy. And I don't know if this is a thing where you guys are, but we have these energy drinks that are full of caffeine, and I was drinking like 2 or 3 of those a day. Very, very unhealthy stuff. They're more like stimulation drinks, not energy drinks. And so I really had, no experience or understanding of anything alternative. I just sought traditional medical care when these issues started happening. In the beginning, I didn't do anything about it because I just thought, oh, this is no big deal, it'll go away. But it got worse and worse to the point where it was really interfering with my life. And finally sought traditional medical care thinking, okay, well, I just show up with problems A, B, and C, and they give me drugs X, Y, and Z, and problem solved. And come to find out, it doesn't really actually work that way, especially in the traditional Western system. It's, oh, you got a problem with your skin, we'll send you to the dermatologist. Oh, you got a problem with your digestion, we'll send you to the gastroenterologist, and so on. And so then I was seeing a bunch of different doctors. They're all running their own tests, and none of them can really figure out what's wrong or tell me what's wrong. And I mostly get, your blood work looks normal, it must not be a big deal. Oh, it must be all in your head. Oh, we can't figure it out, let's send it to the next guy. And so I was really getting the runaround, like we're going to pretend like we're helping you, but we can't really help you. We don't know what to say. We don't want to admit that they're wrong. Don't want to admit that they can't figure this out. And so they just kind of tap dance, for lack of a better word. And I feel like I'm using a lot of American expressions. So if this doesn't make sense, let me know. But
no, it's perfectly fine. And, the model that you're talking about of Western medicine is very similar to what's happening in India. We've forgotten all our traditional things, and we are also running to doctors.
Okay. So, after a while of this, of not getting any better, I get frustrated. I really had thought just, oh, modern medicine can help me. And I really thought I was the only person that modern medicine couldn't help. Now we're in a Zoom room full of 25 and plus of you guys. And so I thought, okay, well, I have to figure this out on my own, that they can't help me. And so I was working as an engineer. So I had a pretty good science background, understood the scientific literature, understood chemistry, biology, physics, math, all that stuff. So I thought, okay, I can figure this health stuff out, like if they can't figure it out. So that's when I became a researcher essentially. And more than that, my own lab rat. Like I really started testing things on my own. And I remember coming across information that said, well, if you just eat healthier, more fruits and vegetables, a lot of these problems go away. And I thought, oh, I don't want to do that, right? Like there's got to be some pill, there's got to be some supplement, there's got to be some powder that comes in a tub, or a wonder drink that comes in a jar. If I just drink it, the problem will be solved. And that too turned out not to be true. And so as things got progressively worse and I wasn't getting any better, trying a bunch of, alternative whoozy what's it's, finally decided to take the leap and say, okay, I'll do this eating healthier thing, even though I really don't want to do it. And, kind of bounced around in that universe for a while. I was just trying to not eat the things that irritated me. So it's like, okay, well, gluten, irritates me. Well, instead of eating the regular bread, I'll just eat the gluten-free bread, which tasted like cardboard and didn't really make much of a difference. And so at some point I thought, okay, I just got to eat food that's not going to irritate my stomach. Like the digestion was the big symptom that really was most upsetting, and said, okay, well, I will just, as someone who's lived off microwave foods my whole adult life, like my mom cooked fairly healthy when I was a kid, but when I went off on my own, it's just like fast food, microwaves, pizza, burritos, American junk food. And so I thought, okay, well, a blender is a lot like a microwave, right? Like I just open up the door, and instead of putting the junk food in, I put the fruits and vegetables in, and I close the door, and then I press a button, and then a little while later I get my food. So I started doing smoothies like this picture, because it was just like, well, it was just more of a way to, will this work? I'm just looking for something I can eat that won't irritate my stomach, but quickly found that it worked really well. And not only did I digest well, but I noticed that the more I ate, the better I felt. I had more energy. My pain started to subside. And so I got really into it, and I started doing it more and more. Started looking up smoothie recipes on the internet, found out that there were people called raw foodists that just ate all raw food and drank smoothies every day. And I thought, it sounds crazy, but if like this is what it's going to take to get better, like I'll do it. I don't care. And so just kind of stumbled into a rabbit hole with that. And then as I got more into it, it got better and better. And eventually got to a point where I was symptom free. I had reversed everything. And I felt, not only did I not wasn't sick anymore, I felt better than I felt in my whole entire life. Like I just felt happier and had more energy and just more excited about life. And it was a really big transformation for me that was really unexpected. I was just trying to figure out a way to eat food that didn't make my stomach hurt. And I kind of backdoored into a whole bunch of other things. And so that really eventually led me to realize, like, I don't want to do this engineering thing anymore. I'd like to help people. So here we are doing that, I guess, 12 years later.
So how long did it take you to, and people can also put their questions in the chat if you have any questions. How long did it take you to get well once you started on this track where you adopted more fruits and vegetables and more smoothies in your diet?
I would say it took about 7 or 8 months, but about 5 or 6 of those months was figuring out what worked.
Yeah.
And then 2 to 3 of those months was like doing it 100%, like, just going all out with it to really get the results. So there was definitely a period of frustration in figuring things out. But once I had, what I teach now, in my book and in my group and all this stuff, and I'm sure Nandini's passing that knowledge on you. Once I really found what worked, it was a matter of just a few months to really heal everything.
Okay. And during these 7 to 8 months, were you fully raw, or were you also eating some amount of cooked food?
Oh, I mean, yeah, during the first 5 to 6 months of that, I would try to eat as much raw as I could, and then I would go and eat cooked food. I was still eating some dairy products because I just couldn't quit it. So in the beginning, there was a lot of bouncing back and forth, but I would say when I finally got things dialed in, if eating 90 to 100% raw for several months, that's when I noticed a big shift. I think I probably in that first 2 or 3 months, I was probably eating about 80% raw, and I healed about 80% of what I had going on. And then it was, I think later the next year that I said, okay, I'm going to commit to doing, I was like, I'm going to do 90 days raw or 60 days raw. I think it was early 2012. And then 60 days kind of ballooned into 150 days. And over that period of time, and I mean, I really healed the backlog of everything, went through crazy detoxes, had spiritual experiences. It was kind of more than I bargained for, but mostly in a good way. Yeah.
So when you did these 60 days, which then went on, then after that, did your cravings for cooked food stop? Around when did that happen? Because many of us are actually struggling with cravings for cooked food. So we want to know what happened with you. When did it stop for you?
I think the intense cravings were gone about 3 months in, maybe 2 to 3 months in. And then there was still like, it wasn't like I was some monk who never desired it, but it was not, it was like, it became manageable, where it was like, okay, I can tell I want it, but I'm not gonna like lose my mind if I don't have it. So I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah, so basically you were able to overcome, I mean, you were able to resist the cravings. Initially you couldn't, so you were giving in, and then 3 months into your raw journey you were able to say no, even though it was attractive to you, right?
yeah, there's probably the first, what I've noticed with people is that often the first few weeks there's no cravings, and then week 2 or 3 it's like, whoa, it hits you hard. And so there was probably that period, on and off for the first 2 or 3 months of like intent. Oh, I gotta stick with it. I committed to 60 days, and then I hit the 60 days and I was like, well, I always said I was going to do 90 days sometime after I did 60 days. Why don't I just do the 90 days on top of the 60 days? That was just kind of I was like, I'm on a run, I'm on a roll here, might as well keep going,
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the mentality there. But yeah, I would say there was like month 2 and 3 were like the hardest, and then I just kind of got over the hump, and it really got easy.
Great. So you just took a sort of a self challenge that I'm just going to go raw for 60 days, 90 days.
Yeah, like in 2011 I did 30 days and it was great. I felt amazing, saw tons of shifts. And then I thought, okay, next time I'm going to do 60 days, but I kept putting it off. And I was going through a lot of stuff in my life at the time, and it was hard. And then there was just like, I can't remember. I think it was February 1st, 2012. It was just like, I think it was my like 1 year vegan anniversary. I was just like, I'm going to start today. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do my 60 days now. And then the 60 days went by, like it was really successful. And I was like, I thought I was going to have a break and then do 90 days, but I was like, man, I'm experiencing all this healing, all this detox, emotional healing. Like I'm having spiritual experiences. Like I got to keep going. And so that was kind of the journey that I went on. Yeah.
So somebody just asked, did you avoid gluten and did it help?
Oh yeah, I avoided gluten. Gluten was always a major, and it still is always a major trigger. And yeah, it helped tremendously. Absolutely. We got a question of how was your family support?
Right.
There was no family support. There was family was not supportive. Let's just say that. Friends were not too supportive. I was doing this on my own. And I mean, we could go into that whole story, but
yeah, I mean,
yeah,
2012 is 10 years ago. So in India, people didn't even know what vegan meant. Even now, many people don't know what vegan means. So to go raw food is, I'm sure it was a big leap away from mainstream, 10 years ago in the US. Now, at least raw foodists are a thing in the wellness circles. They are well known. But I think 10 years ago, with no Instagram, none of these things, it was probably very, very alien concept.
Yeah, well, I actually remember, I think it was summer of 2012 that Instagram kind of came on my radar as a thing. And all these people were like posting pictures of like their fruit and like what they were doing with raw foods. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, I'm gonna start posting pictures of what I'm doing. And like following all these people who like lived in Hawaii and ate this like did raw foods like better than me. And I was just like, wow, this is cool. But yeah, it was still very things have come a long way in 10 years. Like that was a long time ago.
Yeah. So we have a doctor on our group. She's a allopathic doctor, must be an MD because almost all doctors are. So she's asking the scientific basis for the method of this lifestyle, eating and habits. And before you answer, I just want to mention, Monica, please read Dr. Ben's book because it goes into a lot more detail on the science behind this kind of eating and why it's good for us. But yes, Dr. Ben, anything you'd like to say in answer to this?
Sure. And I appreciate that because yeah, it's like we could do a whole 2-hour talk on that alone. So I'll give the abbreviated explanation. And the book I go into detail in the book, so definitely check that out. But here is the short version, and that's that the body has the capacity to heal itself. The body has the capacity to detoxify itself to the degree that we provide it the optimum conditions to do so. So the food doesn't actually really heal you. What it does is it just removes the obstructions to healing, because food, especially unhealthy food, leaves behind what we call metabolic waste. Like there's a part that your body uses and burns for energy, but then there's all this other stuff left over that it kind of has to clean up and get rid of. And so fruits and leafy green vegetables, raw foods, leave behind the least amount of metabolic waste, very little, and they have the most nutrition in them in terms of vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, all the things that we need, the most of that and the least amount of things that we don't need, so that it gives the body the optimum conditions for health, and then the body itself does the healing. That's basically the very short and physiological explanation of what's going on.
Yeah, that's extremely powerful. When I first heard that, it just blew my mind. And I was so upset that I had not come into this information before, that none of my teachers, my doctors, even alternative practitioners, they had not explained this well. So thank you for reiterating that. The next question is, what motivated you to write Create Health?
Well, that's a good question. I think part of it was I wanted to get my story out there. I wanted, like in the beginning, I thought I was the only one dealing with this stuff. I really just thought I was lonely in the world, because when you have a lot of these chronic conditions, they're not visible on the outside. Like, yeah, I had eczema all over my hands, but I mostly just kept my hands in my pockets so that people wouldn't see it. But like, Nandini has rheumatoid arthritis, but you wouldn't know by looking at her. Like you couldn't tell, like, oh, that person's got rheumatoid arthritis. Oh, that person's colon's a mess. The colon's on the inside of the body. You can't tell, right? So I thought not a lot of people had, but then I came to find out, no, this is actually a big systemic problem. And so I realized there's just a lot of people to help. And it's like, okay, I can come on a Zoom tonight and I can talk to 25 people, and that's awesome. But I want to reach hundreds, thousands, millions. So the book was a way to do that. And also I kind of got sick of answering the same questions on Instagram. And so that was the impetus of the book. And I had read a lot of different things, and I had, a lot of different experiences, and I felt like nothing out there was really saying it succinctly in the way that I wanted to do it. And I knew that a lot of people appreciated my message and wanted to hear it in my voice. And none of knew what you said about the book, how it explains it all in simplified terms and straightforward, without not a lot of like techno-scientific babble, but at the same time, like it makes sense and it's doable, and it's like boots on the ground, tires on the road, like here's what you do to get well, no nonsense stuff. That's what I want it to be. So when you said that, I was like, oh, that's exactly what I aim for. But I actually wrote the book. I wrote the table of contents for the book in 2014. I just hate writing, and I have a tendency to procrastinate that I had to overcome. A lot of fear and doubt about putting this out there. What would people say? But the feedback's been 99% positive. So glad I finally did it. Although honestly, I wish I had written the book 8 years ago. But what can you do?
There's a question from Millie saying, how does food help release emotions? But if I can paraphrase it a little bit, Millie, what is the link between health, emotions, and food? And in that context, Millie's question.
Sure. So it's a fantastic question, and one that doesn't get talked about enough. And so here's what I would say. Here's how I would explain it is that, number one, the food doesn't actually release any emotions. The body has the ability to feel emotions and release emotions. But again, it's to the degree that we allow it to. When we eat really unhealthy food, especially fatty food, food that has a lot of artificial chemicals in it, food that has a lot of artificial flavorings, or a lot of, it's very spicy, or it's very seasoned with a lot of stuff. And I know in India, y'all are great at seasoning food, right? You're probably like the best in the world at it. So these kinds of things actually, especially fatty foods and processed foods, actually interfere with the body's ability to feel emotions, right? It's like, oh, I'm feeling sad, I'm just going to go have some ice cream, right? Or I don't know what the comfort foods are where you guys live, but we have this idea of comfort foods. It's like, oh, I'm feeling sad, so I'll eat this unhealthy food that makes me feel better. Well, the unhealthy food doesn't make you feel better. It just makes you not feel bad, right? It just numbs the negative emotion. And so when you're eating this every meal, every day, it's like you just have all these emotions that you've repressed because you're repressing them with food. Then all of a sudden you start eating fruits and vegetables, and it's like, oh my God, all these emotions are coming up. Things I haven't dealt with in 10 years are coming up. Like, why am I feeling all this intensely? And then you crave the unhealthy food to make, oh, if I just eat the pizza, the negative feelings will go away. Or I eat the, oh God, no, I can't remember. If I just have a dosa, it's like the problem will go away. But that's really just like, you're not used to feeling your emotions. So you want to go back to what you know, which is covering them up with food. But when you eat unhealthy, when you eat healthy, especially when you're like consistently eating raw foods, it's like that emotion's coming up to be dealt with. There's no hiding from it with, samosas and dosas. Sorry. It's got to be dealt with. So hope that's a good answer to that question, but we can dive more into this if we want to.
I love that you said samosas and dosas. That's what
like,
we're doing. So
probably two of the unhealthy Indian foods that I know. So
yeah, it is. So
okay.
if I just understood, what you're saying is that unhealthy food is a way for us to distract us from the difficult emotions that we are feeling, because it gives
it's a way to
some sort
numb
of
those emotions.
temporary relief or temporary release of I don't know, dopamine or something in our mind. So what would you recommend that we do instead when we feel, stressed or angry or some traumatic emotion or memory comes up? What's a more wholesome response? Because right now we are reaching out for samosas and dosas. So what is a healthy response to that?
Sure. So there are multiple ways to deal with this. And honestly, like dealing with your own emotions and having healthy responses to them is a skill set you need to build, right? Because our whole life we've just been like, oh, I'll just eat unhealthy. Like we don't even know that we're doing it, right? So now when it comes up, it's in the beginning, it's hard. So you're gonna like try to do it and not be successful, probably, or you're gonna struggle, and that's okay. So just realize that things that I'm gonna explain to you might seem like, oh, Dr. Ben, that sounds really hard to do, or I don't know if I can do that. You gotta work at it. And eventually you get good at it. So one of the things is honestly, as uncomfortable as this sounds, it's just like sitting with it. Like, okay, I'm feeling angry about something right now. Well, what am I angry about? And like really contemplating it. And then another thing is that most emotions have what's called a somatic component, meaning they have a bodily component. You may feel the anger in your chest. You may feel it in your stomach. You may feel it in your hips. You may feel it like in your throat, different areas in the body. So you want to get in touch with that. Like, oh, okay, I'm feeling like a lot of anger, like right in my stomach, like it's like right here in my stomach. And then like focus on it, notice it. Okay, I'm feeling this anger here. Even express it out loud. Like I'm feeling anger and it's in my stomach and I'm angry at blank, right? And just be able to like sit with it and feel it. And then oftentimes it passes, right? Because it wants to be just acknowledged. And so what happens is we try to find a million ways to suppress it, whether that's with food or with alcohol or with watching like, shows on the internet or whatever it is, or movies or video games, anything to distract us from feeling that. But if we actually sat and felt it, it would go away, but it just keeps pestering us to feel it and we keep trying to suppress it. But then when we finally sit with it and acknowledge it, and what it is, where it is, what we're feeling, oftentimes it's like, okay, I felt it. That wasn't, it's kind of momentarily uncomfortable, but then it passed and I feel fine. So that's definitely the primary strategies is just to sit with it and like maybe talk to someone about it,
Or, like talk to a therapist about it, or to a friend, or maybe try some of the healing modalities, which you already know. which can help you with that. So there are
Yeah, absolutely. And so we have this group here, and I don't know if you guys have regular communication off the Zoom calls, but it's like you can communicate to each other, that's like you're going through this and support each other. That's big. I mean, Nandini's in a group that I have, and we support each other with this kind of stuff when we're dealing with it. We reach out to each other. And that's important to have that community for sure, especially when like dealing with this kind of stuff, because now you're feeling emotions because you've been eating mangoes all day. That just sounds weird, right, to most people, but to our little inner circle here, it's like we get it.
Yeah, I eat mangoes all day because they're about to go out of season. Dipali, can you please unmute because I haven't understood your question? She said, what if it is otherwise? I feel urge for food first, because it's related to what you just said. Go ahead,
Yes.
Dipali.
So I feel like the urge for food first before I can get into that emotion. So what you're talking about is you have the emotion and you sit with it somatically. What I'm asking you is, what if I have the urge to eat a dosa first? So for example, I'm really having this urge that I want a dosa today. And
oh my God, I'm such a bad influence by saying the word dosa on this call, aren't I?
No, I'm just saying.
We're all eating dosas today.
I'm just saying, for example, for me, my comfort food is dal chawal, like, rice and lentil. So if I'm having this huge craving to go for that, and I'm unable to tap into the emotion, like, so how do I work that out? Because for me, I go into the comfort food now. Like, I'm missing this.
That's a great question. So I guess one of the things that when it hits is you want to ask yourself, like, okay, I'm craving this. What's behind this? What's going on? Is it because I just haven't eaten enough fruit today and I'm just really legitimately hungry? Or is there like a difficult emotion? Am I going through a stressful thing? Is there something happening right now that's like causing me stress? And then actually my reaction, like my knee-jerk reaction, my gut reaction is that I want this comfort food. Like, is that what's really going on? Or is there something bothering me? And you might have to like question that. But yeah, though, that's a totally normal thing to have happen. We're just the habit of eating the comfort food is so ingrained that we don't even realize that there's an emotion coming up. We just think that we want it and that's it. But oftentimes there's a deeper level to it. And that's where having a regular meditation practice can help, because then you become aware of your own unconscious patterns and it becomes easier to notice this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think we get early on very ingrained into the habit of being soothed with food. Like even our children do, even our parents do it when we are children. It's like, oh, you got hurt. Oh, have this ice cream. Oh, you something bad happened at school. Okay, let me make you this sugary dessert, to comfort you. So it's so connected that that's what we reach out to first. Very often when I have had the urge to eat unhealthy and question, what am I really looking for here? Oftentimes the answer has been like, I'm bored, nothing much is happening with my life, or I'm feeling down a little bit. Maybe I had a program with a friend and she canceled on me, or maybe my boyfriend didn't text me when he said he would text me, or I'm just feeling like I need some stimulation. I need to feel comforted. And that's when I, often reach out for, and for me, it's chips, the crunchy kind of things. So, and the more I work on it, the more I work on awareness. There are times when I say, okay, what else could I have? Maybe I could have a few crunchy almonds. Okay, sometimes it works, but there are some times that I just have to eat the chips. So I think this habit of sitting with it, questioning ourselves, becoming aware, sounds simple, but it's actually not simple to do, but it is very profound. It can lead to profound shifts in my experience. If anybody else has such an experience, you can share. And I also wanted to go on to the questions that people had asked in the group. Just one sec. Is it related to what I just said, Preet? Okay, please go ahead, unmute yourself and ask.
Yes, so I'm facing something very strange. Like I'm really a beginner. I cannot even call myself a beginner. So it's like when I'm having a raw fruit. Like earlier when I had
Just
raw,
speak a little louder. I'm finding it difficult to hear you. Yeah, hold the microphone a little closer, please.
so earlier, so when I like kind of consciously want to change, switch over from the normal eating to this fruits and raw things. So what is happening is that my body or my mind is trying to fight it. Like if I'm eating one apple and I'm like, okay, I'm going to have only now raw. After some time, I'm going and attacking the the food which is kept at home. It is looking extra delicious. I don't know what.
Who can relate to this? So Preet, you're not alone.
Oh, okay. But now I've come out of this actually. So need a lot of patience, I guess, and a lot of contemplation somewhere, talking to the self.
So what's
So
your question for Dr. Ben? How to come out of this?
how to be consistent, not give up, like how to be consistent. Because like I have a big family, so it's like I'm giving food every time. So every time there's such a big challenge to stop that, that craving or that desire. Because when you don't want to eat, the food looks in fact more tasty and more inviting. So so that is uh, where I need some strength actually right now, strength and patience to hold on to the right things. Yeah.
Okay, let's hear from Dr. Ben.
Yeah, Dr. Ben.
So the question is, how do you stay consistent at it?
Yeah, how to stay consistent, and especially with her family, which is a big family that she's staying with, is eating all these yummy foods which she used to enjoy. How to stay consistent with her wanting to eat more raw at this time.
Okay. I would say that there's really three things you need to be successful. Okay. So number one, you need systems. Okay. You need like a plan that you have and a way systems that you stick to it, right? Like for me, I'm buying, produce 2 to 3 times a week. I'm making sure that I always have plenty of inventory in my home. And so that like, there's never like, oh, I'm out of fruit or I'm out of vegetables or whatever. I always have plenty. And I'm preparing my meals either the morning of or the night before so that everything's ready. If I'm traveling or if I'm going on a trip, I'm bringing stuff with me. So I have a system in place to make sure that I'm always have the food that I need to eat in front of me. And it's never like, oh, I'm out somewhere and I don't have any food and I didn't bring lunch and I guess I'm going to go eat this. That never happens because I'm always prepared. So I have a system. Okay. So that's number one thing is systems. Number two thing is mindset. Like really, you got to get to the point where you like see yourself as someone who is successful at this. Okay. And someone you got to believe in yourself. And the way that you do that is by being in groups like this, where it's like other people are doing it and there you see them succeeding. You see someone like Nandini or myself succeeding, and you're like, okay, well, if they can do it, I can do it, right? And you're surrounding yourself with people who are getting the results that you want, because obviously in your day-to-day life, you're surrounded by a home full of people who are eating things you don't want to eat, right? So as much as you can be involved with people who are doing what you want to do and getting the results you want to get, the more it'll help your brain. And then the third thing is accountability. Like ultimately, you need someone to like hold your feet to the fire and make sure you do it, like some sort of coach like Nandini or whoever, who's like checking in on you regularly and making sure that like, okay, did you do what you said you were going to do? It would be nice if we didn't need that, but that's real life. So I think those three things are probably like, if you can get all those things dialed, systems, like community and accountability, it's gonna happen a lot easier.
We had some questions that people have submitted previously. I want to go to those before we go to the questions coming in now. So
Okay.
One was from Nix Garg. He said, can gallbladder stones be reversed using plant-based diet?
Yes. In fact, someone who's done it was actually supposed to be on this call. She's a client of mine. But yeah, I've seen it done. Absolutely. I mean, if they're really big, it can take a while. But yeah, absolutely.
One of my clients, I don't know if he's here today, he has gallbladder sludge. So is that like a
I'm here.
precursor to?
Nandini,
Oh,
I'm here.
yeah, Sonal. So is that a precursor to stones? And can you give him some words of reassurance because he's just joined the group?
I've never heard of that term sludge or gallbladder sludge, but I would imagine if it's a precursor to stones, then absolutely it can be reversed.
Yeah, it's a precursor to stones. So
The precursor.
I am a doctor, so I'm saying it's a precursor to stones. Yeah.
So it's probably easier to remove the sludge at this stage rather than wait till they become stones, correct?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So Sonal, I hope that gives you some
Very
reassurance.
comforting. Very comforting.
Okay.
Also, can I ask something now, Nandini, or later you want me to?
Can you just
give me
wait
chance?
because people submitted
sure.
the questions. I don't
Sure,
want them
sure.
to think that they were ignored.
Sure,
But please
sure,
type
sure.
it in the chat so it's there.
Okay.
Shalini asked, how long does it take to reverse autoimmune conditions in an average person? And will it come back once you stop taking the plant-based diet?
So I would say that, like how long it's going to take to reverse is proportional to how long it's been going on. So like someone like Nandini who's been dealing with 15 years, it's going to take a while, right? Someone who's a bit younger, maybe only been dealing with this for a few years, it might only be, a few months. I've seen people reverse, I had a young woman, she's 17 years old. She had juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, and it was like less than 4 weeks. It was like, boom, it just happened fast. But then, I have someone who, her MS has progressed so bad that she has to use a walker. Well, it's been about, a few months, and it's like she's made some progress. She kind of fell off and lost some of the progress, but that's going to be a long time to get, something like that. And then will it come back once you stop plant-based diet? Absolutely it will. It's not something that you can like heal on and then stop doing and then expect that you'll keep your results. It doesn't work that way. But the good news is you feel so good doing it that you don't mind continuing.
And I also think there is a link to if you have taken medications. I took medications for a long time, even though I tried to quit it 7 times unsuccessfully in the 14 years. I think the medications cause their own problems of toxicity in the body. And then the body has not only to rid the original cause of inflammation, it has to deal with all the chemicals that have been ingested or injected and take them out as well. And I think that's why it takes longer if you have been on medications. Would you agree with
Probably
that?
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm
Okay,
reading the questions here. The next one's about supplements, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what is the role of supplements on the healing journey? I'm not a huge fan of supplements. I think B12 is probably the only one that's like really necessary, because that nutrient doesn't come from plants, but it also doesn't come from animals. It comes from bacteria that live in your poop and in the soil. So that's one that you want to supplement. Vitamin D, I used to be a fan of supplementing. Now I'm starting to just assess more emerging research and realize that maybe supplementing that one actually isn't the best idea. And that getting it from sunlight is probably the best way to go. And that oftentimes stress can lower your vitamin D. I mean, like you can't just out supplement your stress. You have to actually work on, mitigating and managing your stress. So yeah, I would say they don't play a huge role, but vitamin B12 super important. But anything else, not as important. Next question we had is, how long does it take to heal fatigue, joint pain, and constipation with plant-based diet? Will a person be able to switch normally between cooked and plant-based meals? I assume they mean cooked and raw meals.
Yeah.
So these things, it's generally depends how long they've been going on, like we talked about, but usually a matter of months. Especially if you're eating like 100% raw and sticking to the program, it's going to be more months if you're, not, maybe eating mostly raw, or even longer if you're like falling off and getting back on again. And then will a person be able to switch? So I would say, like, when you're in that healing phase, like you really want to be eating as much raw as you can. For the sake of your digestion, you really want to be eating cooked food if you're going to eat it later in the day, because it digests much slower than raw food, which digests fast. So if you eat like, say, a cooked meal for breakfast or lunch, and then you're trying to eat fruit for later in the day, well, the fruit's going to have a hard time digesting because it's going to run into that cooked food that's still digesting. It's going to cause fermentation, and it's not going to digest. You're gonna be like, this fruit isn't digesting well. Why is that? Well, it's because there's a brick of cooked food underneath it. So let's see. And then I think we have another set of questions. Okay. Does this diet cure varicose veins? I don't actually know the answer to that one, but I know that, like, I would imagine if they're like early stages, you know what? Actually, let me look, because I used to have a varicose vein on my thigh. Let me see if it's still there. I haven't looked in years. I think it's gone. Oh, well, no, you know, it's still there, like a tiny bit, but it's not what it used to be. So maybe.
Is there a way to discipline the mind and body to stop food addiction and switch to raw foods?
That's a great question. I really don't like the word discipline, because I think a lot of it is like we whip ourselves, right? It's like, oh, you screwed up. You ate the lentils and rice. Like, you're bad. Like, we got to discipline you, you know, like you're some kind of like donkey or something. I think that strategy doesn't work that well. I think you really got to work on like self-acceptance, loving yourself, forgiving yourself for mistakes, and really just like working on your mindfulness and working on, like we talked about, like getting in touch with your emotions, feeling your emotions, sitting with your emotions, and having a healthy relationship with them. And once that happens, like it just becomes easier to do. It becomes fun. It's not like a challenge. It doesn't involve a lot of willpower. And so it's not like a discipline thing. Like, if it takes discipline, you know, discipline and willpower, everybody has a finite amount. I mean, some people have more than others. Honestly, me, I don't have a heck of a lot. Like, I really could stand to be more disciplined. But what I do have is I'm in touch with my emotions, and I have systems. Remember, I was talking about the 3 things that you need. I have really good systems in place that just make it easy, so I don't have to use a lot of discipline. It's not like I come into my house and it's like, oh man, I could really go for one of these burritos, but I'm gonna have mangoes instead. This stuff, the systems creates that's not available to me. So I think if you're trying to go the discipline route and just like whip yourself and I gotta be a raw food, it's gonna be hard. And I trust me, because I did it, you know, for a while, and it just didn't work. And you know, really had to take this other route of like getting in touch with my emotions, building a meditation habit, you know, being more accepting of myself and other people too, because I was very. And so it was like, oh, you screwed up, like super self-critical, but then I would be critical of other people, and it really drove myself crazy, and it made it hard to manage my emotions, and working on that helped. So I guess that's my answer to that question. I hope that was satisfactory.
Yeah, that's the end of the questions that were asked before. There are 3-4 questions on the chat, and then we'll do the closing of the session. Do you want to scroll through those, or do you want me to?
Sure, yeah, I can read them. Okay. Yeah. So, so someone asked, how does raw help in growing spiritually? I think it's just more that the more vibrant your physical vessel is, just the more spirituality is just going to be, you're just going to feel it more and be more in touch with it. Just as if you like meditated more to like increase your mental health. Well, if you do the things to increase your physical health, like spirituality is going to help. You're going to grow in that. Do I see a role in fasting and restoring health, and what extent should be incorporated? Yes, absolutely. I actually worked for 3 months at a fasting clinic and saw some really miraculous things happen. So I think in the cases of severe disease,
you worked at True North, right? I think some
yes.
people are aware of it.
Yes.
Dr. Goldhammer, and yeah.
Yes. And so I think it's definitely an option, but I think, and it could be a faster track than doing raw foods. You can actually get more results in less time, but it's a different strategy because you really like, first of all, you need supervision. Okay. You can't be doing fasting for more than 48 hours without supervision because there are adverse events that can happen. And if you're incapacitated as it is from the fast and you can't get yourself to a hospital or do what you need to do, you can die. So there is like a small level of danger if you're not supervised. If you got someone who knows what they're doing, like me, I've supervised probably 100 fasts. It's actually a really good process. And then of course, when you're fasting, you're also like, you're taking time off from work, you're not working, you're resting all the time, you're not moving. And so it's like something you really have to dedicate time to, and you probably have to like, give up if, you work a job or you have a business, you have to step away from that for a while, which, can be difficult. So then, but yes, I've seen amazing miracles happen with water fasting when done properly and supervised. Some raw foods are heavily into oil, and these would be cold pressed, so they give the illusion of being healthier. What's your view on oil? So oil is a processed food. You take something like olives and you smush them, okay, and you extract out the oil, but then what's left behind? Well, it's the protein, it's the carbohydrates, it's the vitamins, it's the minerals, it's the phytonutrients, it's the water, everything else, right? And there's left with oil, which is fat, maybe a little bit of vitamin E in that olive oil, but that's about it. So now you've taken a food like olives, which, is arguably healthy, or you take a food like coconut, and you extract out the oil, you've taken out all these nutrients, right? So I think, like eat coconut instead of coconut oil, eat avocados instead of using avocado oil. The whole food is going to have all this nutrition that the oil is not going to have. And the oils are actually pretty nutritionally bankrupt and actually really bad, even if they are cold pressed, organic, whatever the new trendy oil is these days, avocado oil. I can't keep track of it. Coconut oil, it changes every few years. They're like, oh yeah, we knew this, we knew that canola oil was bad, but like coconut oil is the way to go. And then a few years they go, oh, it's all high in saturated fat. Maybe that wasn't a good idea. We should do avocado oil. So now avocado oil is kind of the top of the heap until some other oil comes along and they're just like, well, we got to do walnut oil, or I don't know what they'll come up with next, but just eat the whole foods. There's some talk in circles about raw food causing kidney stones. Is that just to malign raw food? It can happen if you're doing like a high fat raw with a lot of oil and nuts. But no. I mean, I've seen nothing but kidney stone reversals on like more of a high carbohydrate fruit based raw food. Okay, someone says I have stomach pain for the last 8 months, multiple diverticula, gallbladder sludge, enlarged prostate, liver hemangiomas. Ooh, okay, extreme weight loss, lack of energy. Okay, so yeah, I mean, these obviously these are signs that like someone ate a pretty unhealthy diet for 47 years, and it's time for a change. And so, yeah, I mean, this is definitely stuff that can help. So implement this and make sure you're eating a lot, because if you're losing weight, you need to put it on. So that means you got to eat a lot of fruit. Thoughts on juicing? Juicing's pretty good, but I'm more of a fan of whole foods and smoothies. Keep the fiber intact, especially if it's fruit. Vegetable juicing is a way to concentrate and get more in the system, which is good, but obviously eating the vegetables is best. But some of us don't like to eat vegetables, let's face it. So if the way we can get them in is through a vegetable juice rather than eating them, and that allows us to get more vegetables in our system, do it. But definitely eating the whole vegetable or blending it is going to be better. Should we have more fruits or vegetables on a raw food diet? Great question. The answer is you want to do half and half. You want to do about equal amounts. Okay. So by calories, that's going to end up being a lot more fruit, because fruit has carbohydrates and sugar in it, it's going to be more calories. Vegetables don't have a lot of calories. I mean, you take a whole head of lettuce, that's 100 calories. Well, if you want to eat 1,000 calories in a day, you got to eat 10 heads of lettuce, and that's only that's only 1,000 calories. So, you might eat a head or two of lettuce. It might only be 100 or 200 calories, but it's big. It's a lot of volume. So volume wise, you want to do about half and half, but calories wise, it's going to end up being mostly fruit, just because it's really difficult to eat a lot of calories of vegetables, and raw vegetables. No one really wants to sit down and like eat 5 heads of kale. That's just not fun. Okay. All right. Oh, running out of time. Okay. Should we have smoothies? Absolutely. Smoothies.
If you're able to stay, then we can continue. But if you have something that you need to go to, then we can stop.
Oh no, I'll stick around. I love this stuff. I'll answer
Great.
all the
So please
questions.
answer the questions then. And
But
I
I'll
have
try to
2
be-
questions before we end as well. So just keep that in
Okay.
mind. Yeah.
So, and some of these, should we have smoothies? Absolutely. I've been drinking smoothies every day for like 12 years. So, I mean, that is like a non-negotiable. So smoothies for sure. Can we mix different fruits together? For some people, this can cause digestive issues if you mix a whole bunch of fruits together, especially people with sensitive digestion. So you want to be careful about that. There's some rules for food combining. It's kind of a long explanation. You can look that up if you want. I think for people with sensitive digestion, that can make a difference. But in general, like, I'm a fan of just like, enjoying fruits for what they are and not trying to mix a bunch of things together. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's a horrible thing to mix them together, but I think there's definitely more health benefits in eating simpler, meals. Okay. Yeah. So there, someone asked about the book. There is no hardcover. There's a paperback. I think it's only available paperback in the United States. Otherwise, I think that Amazon, you can't even get it like in Europe or paperback. I think you got to do ebook. So
Yeah,
if you have trouble
it's
with
only
Kindle,
available in Kindle.
it's only available on Kindle. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
So,
Kindle
yeah.
edition.
Paperback not available in India, right?
Yeah. So maybe if we get enough people that petition Amazon, maybe they'll start doing it. But yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Let's see. Can you please discuss with us your daily intake of fruits and vegetables? So if you go on my YouTube channel, if you go on my Instagram, you'll find I make videos of like, here's what I eat in a day. But this is what I do. It's like a high water fruit mono meal for breakfast, big green smoothie for lunch, big green salad for dinner. So what I might mean by each of those, high water fruit for breakfast. This morning I had 7 mangoes. No, I had 9. I had 9 mangoes. It was great. But like right now it's summer where I am, so mangoes. I just got some really good peaches, some really good nectarines. So I'm excited about that. Been a little bit tricky to find melons, which usually is a big thing here right now, but I haven't seen any good ones. But I do a lot of that in summer, and then in the winter or the fall, I might be doing like citrus. I'm a big fan of that. Pomegranates is another fruit that I like to eat a lot of for breakfast. And then for lunch, I'm doing a big green smoothie. It's usually a big 2-liter, like on the cover of the book. And so almost always that's using like very ripe spotty bananas, usually water as a base, some kind of leafy green, and maybe like one other type of fruit. Like today, I think I had a smoothie that was coconut water and like 10 bananas, maybe like a fistful of blueberries and like some greens. Okay, that was the smoothie. And then dinner is usually some kind of raw salad, a lot of leafy greens. I tend to not eat a lot of other vegetables besides leafy greens. Like occasionally I have cucumbers or bell peppers, but I'm not really like a cruciferous vegetable fan. Mostly just a fan of like leafy greens. And then, some kind of raw dressing. Today I had one that was like hemp seeds, avocado, tahini, lime juice, and just kind of mush that all up. So that's that. And then I actually remember I had a bunch of mangoes before that. So it's kind of like I had the salad, but before that I had the salad, I had a bunch of mangoes. So I think I had like four large mangoes before that. So that's like a typical day for me, I guess. Yeah. Okay.
I'm so glad you're saying all this, because when I say eat a smoothie with 7 bananas and I had, 8 mangoes for lunch, people are like, you are crazy. I'm so glad you're saying these things, because at least there's another person crazy like me who's who's healed himself from so many things, and I'm working on healing myself.
Oh yeah, I'm glad, and I realized I very nonchalantly told people that I ate 9 mangoes for breakfast and another 4 with dinner, and had 10 bananas in my smoothie. And it's like, I've been doing this for so long, it's normal to me. And then it's like, there's people who are like, you eat more than 2 bananas in a day? Oh my God, you're gonna die of potassium overdose, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, eat in abundance. I mean, we're so used to like eating this really like cooked, dense food that is like very nutrient poor but calorie dense. So it's like, I mean, like, how many doses do you need to eat to like how many bananas do you need to eat to get the same calories as a dosa? You may have a dosa and that might be the same amount of calories as eating like 14 bananas, so you got to eat a bigger volume of fruits and vegetables. And it may sound crazy. It's like, oh, 10 bananas, that's something a monkey does. Well, it's like you got 97% the same DNA as the monkey. So maybe he's onto something, So yeah, don't be afraid. And so the book's called Create Health because it's like it's not about fighting disease, it's about creating health. And so you want to create a lot of health, well, you got to eat a lot of fruit. And so the more fruit that you eat, remember what I said at the beginning, it's like the body can heal itself to the degree that you provide the conditions to do so. So if you provide it like a modest amount of fruit, you're going to get a modest amount of healing. But if you want like a lot of healing, if you want a lot of vibrant health, if you want to feel amazing, eat a lot. There's no such thing as eating too much fruit. It's like it can't be done. Trust me, I've done it. I one time I was eating banana smoothies all day. It was a sports tournament. I had 53 bananas in a day, and there'd be people out that say that would cause, be too much sugar. It would be too much potassium. Your kidneys would fail. I mean, I've heard it all, but guess what? It was one of the best days of my life. So, all this, we're so much ingrained to say, oh, don't eat too much food. It's like, you don't want to be a pig. You don't want to get fat if you eat too much. It's like, if you're eating the right foods, there's no eating too much. Like you will get full and you'll be like, I'm done. I can't have another mango. I'll lose my mind. Right. And that's when you're good. But if it took you 12 mangoes to get there, awesome. Because that's good for you.
Loveleen has her hand up. Do you want to ask something?
This is regarding a friend actually who has kidney disease, and it was at bay, but now her creatinine has increased, her kidney function has decreased, and I've been motivating her to, hey, you need fruit, but it's the opposite because doctors have taken her off of anything good in her life as far as good food goes. So do you have anyone that you've helped with kidney disease to go on a raw and, just heal themselves, so I can motivate her to do that? Because right now, obviously, she's not believing.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think like eventually there's a point where, like depending on what her GFR is, which is like how well her kidneys are filtering, like there's a point where like it actually like it becomes taxing on like the kidneys can't handle what you really need, in terms of like it becomes you have to wash the potassium, you have to wash the protein, and you can't quite do it if the kidneys are like really in late stage failure, because the kidneys just can't handle like a normal metabolism. And so you got to modify things a bit. I'm not the best knowledge of like how to eat when you're in kidney failure, but it is a little bit different than this. It's like if the kidneys aren't fully functioning, or they're like kind of the end stage of things, it can get tricky for sure. But did you know what?
Do you have
stage
any
she's in?
reference?
Like
She's not on dialysis. Yeah, she's not
Okay.
on dialysis. But I don't know, she could head there in a couple of years maybe. But do you know anybody, any raw foodist who's dealt with
Do you
that, or
think
any
Dr.
doctor?
Brooke Goldner will be able to help her, because she speaks a lot about kidney stuff? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, because with lupus, it does affect the kidneys. So yeah, I mean, it's going to depend on like how how damaged the kidneys are. So if it's like stage 4 or maybe even stage 3, it might be kind of not an option.
Gotcha.
But stage 1 or 2, it should be fine.
Okay, I'll find out. Thank you.
Okay, so let me ask the closing questions, if that's okay. I think we answered all the questions. So what is your mission in the world, Dr. Ben?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's really to create a new system, because like the systems that we have for health and for agriculture aren't really working, you know? And so
Bless
I
you.
think, yeah, I think it's what we do is we educate and inspire enough people to make changes in their life to the point where it's like we need the amount of fruit and vegetables we're consuming, the current production system isn't there, right? And so we're forced to plant more fruit trees and to have more farms where we're growing this kind of stuff, and that changes the world. So it's kind of a bottoms up strategy that basically we change the world by changing ourselves. So my mission is really to inspire enough people that we end up changing our healthcare system out of necessity, because people are no longer needing these drugs. The pharmaceutical companies go bankrupt. Meanwhile, we plant a bunch more trees, grow a lot more fruit. It's good for the atmosphere. It's good for the humans. It's good for the rest of the planet. And we see positive changes, but just by the actions that we take and how they affect consumer demand with the market, that people are buying fruit and not buying pharmaceuticals. I think that's the more we can have that happen, I think it's going to just have like a ripple effect on the whole world.
Yeah, it reminds me of that sign of pharmacy, FARMACY. Get your medicines at the farm, not at the pharmacy. I
Yeah,
want you to
you can
actually
pay either the farmer or the pharmacy. I'd rather pay the farmer.
exactly.
A lot happier that way.
And somebody's asked about organic. Ami has asked about organic. What's your view on organic versus conventional?
Sure, I think organic is awesome if you can get it. I don't eat 100% organic. You know, there's certain things that are just hard to get organic, or the price tag makes them 2 to 3 times as much organic. I tend to eat, I try to get all my vegetables and my greens organic, and I really like to follow the clean 15, dirty dozen kind of mentality, which says that like certain fruits like avocado, bananas, mangoes have such a good outer layer that they keep a lot of the pesticides out, and they're much safer to eat organic than say non-organic than say something like a strawberry, which doesn't have a covering and absorbs a lot of pesticides. So I would say eat organic to the degree that you can get it and you can afford it, but don't let it be a deal breaker. It's still gonna be better to have the non-organic fruit or vegetable than it is to have any other food.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. Sonal, you had raised your hand. Do you still want to ask?
Nandini, how to join Dr. Ben's group?
That you asked Dr. Ben.
So I
Dr.
asked
Ben,
Dr.
can you say how to join your group and also give your Instagram handles and your other places where people can follow you? Or you can send it to me and I can send it on to everybody in the group.
Yeah, just send them. I mean, my Instagram's just my name, just as it shows up here. And then I'll put my email in the chat. But if you need support, just either message me on Instagram or send me an email at this address.
Great. And
Thank you.
my last question is, what do you wish everyone knew about health?
I wish they knew that it was something that was innate to them, that was not something that they needed to seek from an outside source or an outside person or an outside company or an outside product, that they have the ability to heal themselves, and that really it's up to them and that it's possible for them.
Wonderful. So there's another question that just came in. Do you want to answer that?
Oh, sure. How will a plant-based diet impact pregnant women? I think it's a great way to have a healthy pregnancy.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Dr. Ben. I think it's been very, very motivating and inspiring. And everyone who wishes to thank him and maybe give one takeout from today, I think that will be very helpful for us who work in this area. And it's very nice to know what you got out of this. If everyone can unmute and speak one at a time, what did you get out of this? One sentence.
Much more inspiration than we already had after listening to Dr. Ben, that you have to be on a raw diet to lead a good life, good healthy life. Thank you, Dr. Ben.
Thanks, Naveen.
It's been a great session, Dr. Ben, and thanks, Nandini, for having him. The systems in place, you teach it to us all the time, I know, but it's just great to hear it again. And that will definitely help us to stay on the path.
Thanks, Loveleen.
So more fruits, nothing, no more is enough. I mean, and any more is even less. So 63 bananas is huge, and systems in place, 2 things. Thank you, Dr. Ben.
Wonderful.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Go on raw, be it organic or non-organic.
Yeah, great, Ami.
That was the thing.
Wonderful.
Good to know that we could, organic and or non-organic is also fine. And seeing Dr. Ben and listening to him was so inspirational, because, you read a book, it's different. And when you see him face to face, it's different. Like we see Nandini, and I knew Nandini from way back so many years, and looking at her now, she's such an inspiration.
Thank you, Rose. Thank you.
Hi. So it is just a reinforcement of what Nandini always tells us. And see, being a allopath, it's a, we know this, and I have started practicing this in my clinical practice also. So I have actually started giving diet advice to my pregnant patients. So it's a big, eye opener. So thank you so much, Nandini and Dr. Ben. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Monica.
Thank you so much, Nandini, and thank you so much, Dr. Ben. I have been successfully eating 2 raw meals. The third one, dinner, I have it between 5 and 6, but I've been eating cooked. And now I'm going to work towards making that also raw. Unfortunately, my business is of cooked food, so I'm going to find it difficult, but maybe I'll start a side thing, which is only raw food, so that I can eat that and feed whoever wants the cooked stuff. Thank you.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you, Mayavi.
For me, it was staying. Yeah, for me, it was staying with what is arising. So, for example, like when I have that, I have the urge for the food first. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Dr.
Ali. Thank you.
Hi, Nandini, Shalini here. Hi, Dr. Ben. I like your idea of, like having hydrating foods first thing in the morning, because that kind of, sets the tone for the day. So I think that's a takeaway for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Shalini.
Thanks, Nandini and Dr. Ben, because it's always inspiring to actually watch people who are living this life. And, once when you've fallen off track, and then this just helps you get back on. And for me, the takeaway was really about the simplicity of the meals, because when Dr. Ben described his daily intake, it was fruits and a smoothie and salads. It was so clean and really feels like it's very achievable and able to do. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Millie, the famous Millie of Millie's cashew cheese.
Thank you. Thanks. I have a vegan market that I'm rushing to with all the cheeses that I've been making the last 2 days. So I'm going to say bye. Thank you.
All the best. Bye, Millie.
Thanks, Dr. Ben. It was really lovely to interact with you. And I hope that we can be in touch through more talks. Thank you.
Dr. Ben, would you like to say anything as the last words of wisdom?
Oh, I'm muted here. Yeah, guys, I would say follow me on Instagram if you're on there. That's probably the platform I'm the most active. And, if I can be of support, reach out to me. I think there's a lot of value in the book. I highly recommend getting it. This is developing the skill set to like eat healthy is not just something that just clicks overnight. It's something you got to work at. And so, don't give up if you're making mistakes. Keep at it. You have this group for support. It's a process and it takes time, and just be patient with yourself. You'll get there.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And of course, I again endorse the book. It is really, really simple to understand, and it has all the facts, and it has his personal journey and very simple ideas for incorporating it in your life. I mean, it's so simple that you miss it and you have to read it again. That's what I'm doing. I underline some of the things, and it's said very simply, but it's very profound. That's what I found. So thank you again for writing this book, for inspiring us. And I'll see everybody in the membership group.
Can we name the book again?
All right.
Please?
Create
Have
Health.
a great weekend, everybody. Okay.
It's
Bye-bye.
posted in the Facebook group. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Dr. Ben.
All right. Bye.
Nandini.